Hey, Susie, so good to see you. Makes this day very special. And Louis, it's good to have you and your mother today. He's taken Brother Alfredo's place. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary. And so he asked me, would he be able to miss one Sunday? I said, well, if Sarah can put it in for 10 years, I guess we can miss you for one Sunday. But we do miss them. Miss others out today. I don't know what's because of Veterans Day. They're traveling or what. But we're glad to have you, and I'm glad the Lord's faithful, aren't you? Amen. I want to preach today on El-Elyon. El-Elyon. These names that I've been talking to you about, they are names that shows us what God is, what a great God we serve. And I'm glad that God put them in the Bible, because we would not know some of the things we know about God. Next week will be our last one, and I'll be preaching on El-Elyon. And this is God sees all. You want to be here, I'm sure, to see that one, hear that one. But today we're going to talk about El-Elyon. I heard about a lady that was pregnant, and she was in a car accident. And while she was in the hospital, she fell into a coma. And when she awoke days later, the woman noticed that she was no longer carrying a child. She asked, Doc, what happened to my baby? The doctor replied, ma'am, you've had twins. You're the proud mother of a handsome baby boy and a beautiful baby girl. Also, you should know that while you were in a coma, your brother named the children for you. Oh, no, not my brother. He's not really all there. What did he name them? The doctor replied, well, ma'am, the girl he called Denise, and the boy he calls the nephew. We have names, and names identify certain things. It tells us some things about what we need to know. And I think they're really fascinating. If you do research on names, you find out some wonderful things. And you really cannot appreciate the name El-Elyon unless you study the life of Abraham. And Abraham was known, of course, as being the father of the Jewish race. Even today, he's the father of the Jewish race. And but before that time, he would live in the land of Ur. And is this significant? Yes, it is, very much so. The land of Ur was a place of really advanced culture in that day and time. It was the Silicon Valley of that day and time. And Abraham lived in this here prosperous place, a place of luxury, a place of great income. And he lived there, and God asked him to do something that's very, very important. He did. Now, actually, he told him to leave the land of Ur and go and make a city whose builder and maker is God. Now, Israel is the only one who can say that. We know how we got America. We stole it from the Indians. But actually, they got theirs because the Bible said he was the builder and maker of God. Abraham, leave Ur. Leave this prosperous place. Leave your family and your friends. Leave everything and follow me, and I'll give you a city whose builder and maker is God. Nobody but Israel can make that claim. Man, that's wonderful, isn't it? It really is. And God's asking him to leave. Now, listen, to leave Ur, this place of like the Silicon Valley of that day and time, would be like asking us to leave America and go and dwell in a impoverished land like India or Haiti. He said, preacher, I don't want to go there. I read about that. I heard all about that. I don't want to go there. Well, this is what God's asking him to do. It's a very big thing. I want you to leave Ur, and I want you to stay. I'm going to give you a city whose builder and maker is God. Now, I'm sure that Abraham was quite content, Brother Willie, to stay right where he was. Was a great place to live for business. It was a great place of prosperity. It was everything that a man could desire to have. I'm sure he was content to stay right there if he could. But God said, no, I want you to leave. And I'm going to give you a new city whose builder maker's God. Now, think about contentment. I think about the old gentleman who retired and purchased a modest home near a junior high school. He spent the first few weeks of his retirement in peace and contentment. Then a new school year started. The very next afternoon, 3 young boys, full of youthful after-school enthusiasm, came down his street, beating merrily on every trash can they encountered. The crashing percussions continued day after day, till finally the wise old man decided something has to be done about this. The next afternoon, he walked out to meet the young noise makers as they banged on their garbage cans. Stopping them, he said, "You kids are a lot of fun. I like to see you express your exuberance like that. And in fact, I used to do the same thing when I was young. Will you do me a favor? I'll give each of you $1 if you promise to come around every day and do the same thing." The kids were elated and continued to do a bang-up job every day. After a few days, the old-timer greeted the kids again, but this time he had a sad smile on his face, and he says, "This recession really is putting a big dent in my income," he told them. "From now on, I can only give you 50 cents on a day." The noisemakers were obviously displeased, but they accepted his offer and continued their afternoon ruckus. A few days later, the sly retiree approached them again as they would drum their way down the streets. "Look," he said, "I haven't received my Social Security check yet, so I'm going to have to be able to give you no more than 25 cents a day. Will that be okay?" "A lousy quarter," the drum leader exclaimed. "If you think we're going to waste our time beating these cans every day for a lousy quarter, you're crazy." And we find out the old man lived in contentment the rest of his life. I'm satisfied that Abraham would have been just happy as he could be to stay right there in the land of Ur. It was a great place to live as far as a lost man. It was a great place to make money and so on. And he would have been content to stay right there if he had his choice. But God said, "Abraham, I want you to leave Ur, and I'm going to give you a city whose builder and maker is God." Look what he says in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 4. "Now the Lord has said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, curse them that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." So Abraham departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Now think about that. God told him to leave. But now notice here, he said, the Bible tells us that Lot went with him. Well, is this significant? Yes, it is. God told Abraham to leave, not Lot. Lot caused Abraham a lot of trouble later on in life. We all incur a lot of times a lot of trouble in our lives because we do things that God didn't ask us to do. And he took Lot with him, and later on, I'm sure he regretted took him with him. But anyway, we find out he did what he did. But notice he did not leave. We find out later on in the scriptures, he did not leave until we find out his father had died. Now, God said leave, but he didn't leave. Evidently didn't leave. The Bible said he did not leave until his father had died. Now, I don't want to sound disrespectful to us older men, But the fact is, it says here that he was not willing to, the old man died. Now that's kind of a spiritual application too, Brother Kenny. The fact is, sometimes people are not willing to obey God until the old spiritual man dies. And then they're willing. Then they're willing. You see, then they're willing. Sometimes God has to remove some things from our lives before we're willing to do what he would have us to do. And the Bible makes a point to bring out that he did not leave until his father had died. Now, once he was able to go, God made what we call the Abrahamic covenant. And God promised him 6 things. 6 things he promised to him. He has never promised to any man on the face of the earth. But God promised him 6 wonderful things. And I tell you, they are wonderful. Notice what it says here. I will make thee a great nation of people out of you. Wow. I'll make a great nation out of you. I will bless you personally. I'll give you a name that will be famous and will be remembered. I'll bless those who are gracious and kind to you. And then he says here, I will curse them that curse you, and I'll bless them that bless you. Now that's outstanding. Abraham, if you do this, if you obey me, I'm going to take you into the city whose builder and maker is God, and I'm going to make 6 promises to you. I'm going to make 6 promises to you. This is where we come into the word El-Elyon. God begins to show us another part of God. El-Elyon, El-Elyon, when he made this here covenant. Did he keep his promise? He certainly did. Now, we don't have time to go into all the details of all 6 promises he made, but I would like to mention 2 of them, okay? One is that he said, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Did he keep that promise? He certainly did. You know that Christ came from the seed of Abraham? And from his seed, all the earth has been blessed. God kept that promise. He sent his beloved son through Abraham. I'll do this, Abraham, if you leave the land of Ur. Yeah. Also, he said, and I'll make of thee a great nation, and I'll bless thee and make thy name great. Did God keep his promise? He sure did. He said, I'll make thy name great. Did you know that the Jews, Christianity, and the Muslims all hold Abraham up in high esteem? In their religion, they hold him up. God kept that promise. He did. God kept his promise. He always does. He said, I'll make of you a great nation, a great nation. Now think about this. Israel actually is a land that has no oil. They have a chronic water shortage. They have many enemies. And the whole place is not any bigger than 8,000 square miles. I'll make you a great nation. Yet this little tiny place, less than 8,000 square miles. You cannot hardly turn the news on at nighttime without hearing about Israel. That little town, that little place, God said, I'll make it be a great nation. He's kept his promise. He is El-Elyon. He has kept his promise. You see, he has done this. Now they're surrounded by enemies, but the enemies know that to attack them, they want to wipe them off the face of the earth. They know if they attack Israel, they'll be wiped off the face of the earth. God kept his promise. He keeps his promise, you see. Now, but he didn't stop there. He went on further. He said, I will bless them that bless you, and I'll curse them that curse you. How would you like to have that promise? How would you like for God to say to you, I'll bless them that bless you, and I'll curse them that curse you? Did God keep that promise? He is still keeping that promise. Many believe that today America is America because we are a superpower because of our relationship with Israel. I believe that. God said, I'll bless them that bless you. I'll curse them that curse you. Woe be to the day that America will turn their backs on Israel, because God said, I'll bless them that bless you, and I'll curse them that curse you. Do we have an example of that? We sure do. America and Russia at one time was the superpowers of the world. But Russia always was against Israel. They were always against Israel. They attacked Israel. They fought Israel. They don't like Israel. But Russia is no longer a superpower. Why? Because God said, I'll bless them that bless you, and I'll curse them that curse you. My, what a promise he made here. What a great promise. He has made that promise and has kept that promise. Now I want to show you two things here about El-Elyon this morning. He is a strong God. Yeah. Once Abraham had started to leave the land of Ur, enemies tried to stop him, but they couldn't stop him because God said, I'll bless them and bless you, and I'll curse them and curse you. And God took care of him all the way through. Now, he grew up in the land of Ur, and Ur was a place where they had all these false gods. Many false gods. If you wanted something, you can go downtown, buy your god that will do that for you. You buy your god that does this here for you. Of course, they can't do anything for you, but you can pretend, you know. They had many, many idols that they worship and serve. And God said, leave this place now, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to be El-Elyon. I'm going to show you my power. I'm going to show you how I can take care of you. These gods that you serve cannot take care of you, but I'm El-Elyon, and I can take care of you. He's that God. One day the legend goes that Abraham's father says, son, I've got to go get some more materials to make some more images. And he said, I want you to take care of the shop. He was not only an idol worshiper, his daddy was an idol maker. An idol maker. So he said, son, I want you to take care of the shop where I'm going to get some more materials. When he left, Abraham was in the shop, little statues here all over the place that he had made that people could buy. And they had them all over the place. And Abraham looked around and he said, this is ridiculous. This is nothing but clay. Legend has it, he said, this is ridiculous, people worshiping these things. And we're told that he got him a stick out like a baseball bat, and he started beating those things, breaking them all to pieces. All over the shop, he had busted them all up. When his father came back and his father said, what happened here? What happened here? What happened to all my idols? He said, see that big idol in the back there? That idol got a stick and broke them all up. He said, that can't happen. That's nothing but clay. That can't happen. He said, why are we making these things then? If it's nothing but clay. Listen, Abraham is significant that God said, leave this land here. I want to show you where a true place is, and where El-Elyon can make you understand that he's a living God, not a dead God. Now, what does the word El-Elyon mean? It means that El-Elyon is supreme above every God, every God. He's raised up in all these false gods. He said, El-Elyon is going to show you a living God, not a dead God. He's supreme. El means God, and we find El-Elyon means strong. Put them together, you have a strong God. Aren't you glad today we serve a strong God? I'm so glad we have a God, a strong God. Verse 20 says, and blessed be the Most High God. Let me read it in the Greek. And blessed be El-Elyon, which have delivered thy enemies into thy hands. He left the land of Ur. They began to oppose him, fight him. And notice here he refers to his enemies as God's enemies. You know, if you have God in your heart, you're doing God's will, and when people fighting you, they're not fighting you. They're fighting El-Elyon. He's the supreme God. He can take care of himself. He don't need your help. He can take care of himself, and he will take care of himself if you're in God's will. He's a strong God, a strong God. My goodness, Abraham was so impressed with what El-Elyon had done. The Bible says Abraham said, I'm so impressed, I'm going to give him 1/10 of my income. This is where tithing started. He said, I'm so impressed with El-Elyon. He took care of all my enemies. He's a strong God. I'm going to give him 1/10 of my income. And he was rich. And he said, I'm going to give him 1/10 of my income. Look here in verse 20 and 23. And blessed be the Most High God, which have delivered thy enemies into thy hands. And he gave him tithes of all. And the king of Sodom said unto him, give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, El-Elyon, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from thee a thread even to a shoe latchet, that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abraham rich. He said, I'm not going to take anything from anybody because I don't want nobody to say that God made me rich. God bless me. God is a sovereign God. He's a strong God, you see. He's a strong God. Now notice he was so impressed with El-Elyon that he wanted to give 1/10 of his income. When I was a young pastor, I used to go to the bookstore and buy all kinds of books. I look back and I thought, what a waste of money a lot of times. Some of the books that I got was about how can you get Christians to tithe? And they give you all kind of ideas about how to make Christians tithe. Let me tell you something. I've come to the conclusion people are not going to come tithe until God becomes greater than the gods they have in their lives. They're not going to tithe. When they recognize El-Elyon is a strong God and they're serving these dead gods, they'll then start saying, you know what? He's worthy of my tithes. And Abraham said, I'm going to give him 1/10 of all my income because of that. He is strong. But notice, not only is El-Elyon strong, he's also a sovereign God. I want you to listen real close on this point because I don't want you to misunderstand this. He is a sovereign God. Now look in verses 21 through 23. And the king of Sodom said unto Abraham, give me the portions, the persons take the goods of thyself. And Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I will lift up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God. I will lift up my hands to him, not to anybody else. God made me what I am. What does it mean when we say that we talk about the sovereignty of God? A lot of churches don't even use the word. What do we mean when we say God's a sovereign God? It means if you're rich, God made you rich. If you're poor, God made you poor. God is the boss. God is in control. He wants you to know, and he wants me to know, that he is a sovereign God, that he is in control. He is the boss. He's the boss. Now, I told you I want you to listen real close. Why? Because hyper-Calvinism takes this thing too far. They say, yeah, he's in charge of everything. He makes us what we are. And they say, he's made some people to die and go to hell. He's made some to die and go to heaven. He's the boss. He's in charge of everything. They take that way too far. And I'll explain that to you in a few minutes. That's what we call hyper-Calvinism. A man went to a pet shop and he wanted to go buy him a parrot. He saw one parrot and the man said, well, how much you want for that parrot? He said, I want $500. He said, wow, why does the parrot cost so much? The customer asked the owner, well, he knows how to use a computer. The customer asked about the next parrot and is told that one costs $1,000 because it can do everything the other parrot can do, plus it knows how to use all the other equipment you find in the office. Naturally, the increasing startled man asked about the third parrot and said, that one costs $2,000? Needless to say, the man asked, what can I do? What can he do? To which the owner replied, to be honest, I've never seen him do anything, but the other two calls him the boss. God is the boss. Sometimes we feel like we're the boss. I'll run my life the way I want to do things. I'll do what I want to do. I'm the boss. I have the say-so. Yes, you do. But he's your boss. He's the one, whether you recognize it or not, he's the boss. He's a sovereign God. He's a sovereign God. He really is. He wants us to understand that. When George W. Bush when Bill Clinton became president of the United States, his wife Hillary played a big part in his administration. And then when George W. Bush became president, Laura Bush was asked the question, are you going to be a part of his administration and assist him? And she says, he doesn't need any assistance. He can handle the job by himself. Did you know God don't ask me, he don't ask you. He does what he wants to do. He's God. He is our maker. We may not recognize that. We may not like that, but the fact is, he is God. He is a sovereign God. And he does what he wants to do. When Billy Graham was a young evangelist, just starting out, he was holding a tent meeting, and he was holding a tent meeting, what's his name, Hearst, heard him preach. He had the local newspaper. He heard him preach and he was impressed. And he told his newspaper people, I want you to put him in the paper, give him all the advertisement you can give him, promote him everywhere you can. And Randolph Hearst gave the orders for that to happen. And from that day, Billy Graham became popular. And some will say, well, Randolph Scott made Billy Graham popular. No. God, who is the boss, used Randolph Scott to make Billy Graham popular. God's in charge. He controls all the events of life. He is not just up there waiting for something to happen. He is in control. He is God. He is a sovereign God of the universe. He's the Supreme Court for us Christians, you see. His sovereignty, it means this right here. And if you don't understand any other way, here's a simple way to understand it. When I say God's a sovereign God, he is the boss. He's the boss. Brother Willie, I know that you have a crew that you work, and sometimes you have some people that think they're the boss. You got a problem, haven't you? The boss is the boss. He's in charge. Whether people recognize it or not, God is a sovereign God. He's all-powerful. He's all-powerful, you see. Let me give you some scriptures here to verify what I'm talking about. Psalms 115, verse 3. But our God is in the heavens. He hath done whatsoever he hath pleased. Also, we see in Psalms 46, 9 and 10. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there's none else. I am God, and there's none like me. Psalms 110, verse 3. Psalms 103, verse 19. The Lord hath prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruleth over all. Romans 9:18. Therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will harden. Romans 19:21. Hath not the potter power over the sick clay, of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor, another dishonor? Psalms 135:6. Whatsoever the Lord pleased, that did he in heaven, and earth, and the seas, and the deep places. Daniel 4:36. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and there none can stay his hands. are saying to him, what doest thou? Ephesians chapter 1, verse 11, in whom also we have obtained an inheritance, predestinated according to the purpose of him who worketh all things after the counsel of his own will. God's never asked me to do what I think about anything. There's a TV preacher that comes on, I won't mention his name, but it's terrible. He says he has all these visions where he goes to heaven. And he says that sometimes God says, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do about this? God don't ask you. He's God. We are his creation. He's the boss. He's in charge. He's a sovereign God. He's a strong God. Yeah. Now, his supreme authority, he's the supreme authority of the universe. Now, in saying that, I want to mention this. His sovereignty is inclusive. That is, his sovereignty is inclusive. It includes the big things in my life, the mega things. Yeah, it contains the macro things, the minute things in my life. He could not be God if he's not in control of the big and the small in my life. But he is Almighty God. He's a sovereign God. He controls the big things and the small things. The Bible said he knows the amount of hair we have on our head. The Bible said a sparrow cannot fall without him noticing it. He's in charge. He's in charge of everything, of all the big things and the small things. Now let me say this, because it needs to be said. God's sovereignty also allows us mortals freedom to choose. And you say, preacher, you're contradicting yourself? No. He's in charge. He does what he wants to do. But he's allowed us to have a freedom as mortals that we can choose. We can choose to go to heaven. We can choose to go to hell. God does not send anybody to hell. They send themselves. He made it so that we have a choice. We can choose. He allows us to have that freedom as mortals. And we're allowed to have that freedom to choose, but we're not allowed to have the choice of our consequences. Once you choose, he determines the consequences. God is a sovereign God, and he wants you to know that. And so when God told Abraham to leave the land of Ur, leave all your false gods. Put them all behind you. Put them all behind you. I'm going to make you a city whose builder maker's God. I'm going to show you that I am El-Elyon. I'm going to show you that I'm a strong God. I'm not one of your idols. I'm a living God. I can meet your needs. I'm a living God. I'm the boss of the universe. But I do give you the freedom to choose heaven or hell. But you don't have the freedom to choose the consequences. God chooses that. Now listen, whether you recognize God as the boss today, that's entirely up to you. He's giving you that freedom. As a free moral agent, you can make that decision yourself. You can make that decision. But when it comes down to the decision you make, he determines the consequences. But he wants you to know today, he wants everybody here to know today, that he's the boss. I'm only his creation. I'm only a free moral agent. Yeah, he's the boss. He made everything. He's the Almighty God. He is El-Elyon. And we see that in the life of Abraham. That's the first time this word El-Elyon is mentioned in the life of Abraham, when he had to choose about going to serve a living God and not these dead gods. Would you please stand, every head bow, every eye closed?